On. Guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, we are back today to sell like a professional or perish with Michael Muhlfelder. You got your host Shane. Mike, in 30 seconds, tell people who you are, what are you doing, why should they stay on this episode for the next hour to watch what you have to say.
Oh, because I'm really entertaining this way. So I'm a fractional CRO, or better put, a VP of Sales as a Service. So I'm a solopreneur, career sales guy. I've been in sales for way over 30 years, way in tech for most of that. I've had every sales position from individual contributor up through CRO. And today I help clients on different parts of their go to market, from individual projects or a point solution, if you will, for things like, let's say I need to build an expansion engine for customer, all the way out to operating as a head of sales or CRO on a part-time temporary basis.
So let's go into this. World-class close rates in sales are 25 to 28%. Let's think about that. In what other profession would a 75% failure rate be considered elite? Our guest today has spent 35 years and generated over $500 million in revenue, figuring out why. He's the founder of Car Motion Sales. He's built the VPs of Sales as a Service model from scratch, and his message is simple: sell like a professional or perish. So let's get started. So Michael, you parachute into companies as a fractional VP of sales. You've done this for a few years, handful of years, across a dozen of orgs. When you walk into a new client on day one and open their CRM, what's the first thing you look at, and what do you usually find?
First thing I look at is the funnel top to bottom, and I want to see the deals relative to the percentage of close or stage, however they're using Salesforce or HubSpot, and then the aging of those deals. So what I'm
Okay.
looking at, so I want to know from the CEO or CFO, what's your average sales cycle, days to close, and then I'm using a multiple when I look at the agent. So let's say they tell me, oh, our average sales cycle is 61 days. I'm looking at anything over 120 days. Because if it's more than 2x the average sales cycle, I can be 90% sure, maybe even close to 100% sure that it's not qualified or properly qualified.
Okay. What else do you usually find?
I usually find that discovery either hasn't been done or has been done poorly. That demos and pricing have been given on the first or second call, and therefore the prospect is just simply not calling back or not talking to them.
I think
These
I
are,
find that,
Sorry, Shane, to be clear, these are not companies that are selling transactional, right? If you're selling a
yeah,
transactional solution, $1,000 a month, something like that, not to denigrate that, that's important.
yeah,
Um, that's different. I'm talking about
yeah,
companies that are $10,000, $15,000, $50,000 a month
yeah,
for their solution, or
yeah,
one company where it was still a more traditional model, but we're
mhm,
talking about 100,000 to $1 million deals,
yeah,
and not executing a sales process in a way that makes sense in terms
yeah.
of following a prescribed path from lead to close and then close to renewal.
I always have the argument that sales is linear, which I would disagree with. Would you say sales is a linear process, as in it starts to finish? Because I see it go back and forth. People jump from stage to stage. It goes back and forward, back and forward. How do you kind of see it?
Yeah, it's not linear in terms of how the deals move.
Hmm.
However, there is still a process that has to be followed. So if I were to get in my car right now and say, I'm going to drive, I live on Cape Cod. I'm going to drive from Cape Cod to Chicago. I'm going to have a map, right? And the map is going to say, here are the roads that you're going to travel. Um, and maybe it'll tell me, what your tolls, back in the old days where you had to have money to plan in advance. But what it can't tell me is, on a trip that long, where am I going to hit traffic? Where am I going to hit bad weather? Where am I going to have to stop to use a restroom? Am I going to have to, am I going to get hungry along the way? And where am I going to stop for food? Now, maybe some people are very, overly planful, and they'll say, I'm going to stop here, and that's fine. Where am I going to stop, and find a hotel to sleep? And it may be that, I thought I was going to stay in, Western New York, but now I'm going to double back because there was another, another hotel that had availability. And that's a really like simple type of analysis, but that's the sales process. But fundamentally, the where this is broken, and I've been talking about this for way more than 3 years, the process is broken in the qualification.
Agreed.
So what happens is we get ourselves into deals that actually can't close. And we work the steps and we work the stages. And a lot of times they don't move in a linear fashion because it wasn't qualified. So a new person comes into the process. Requirements change. Requirements change, by the way, even in a qualified deal often. But if it's not properly qualified, I can't detect, are the requirements changing because I've done something, said something that is interesting to them and now they want to know more? Did a competitor come into play, or did some new player say, oh, well, can the solution turn the screen blue and create dancing Willy gigs? And all of a sudden it's like, oh, yes, totally. You have to be able to go back to the beginning and say, first off in the qualification and then second in the discovery.
Yeah.
Say, why, when we did our discovery and we went through all of your requirements, this wasn't in the requirement. The people that you're introducing into the deal, you want me to go back to and do another demo. I'm fine to do another demo, but help me understand what changed. Instead, we just say, oh, okay, we'll do another demo. Oh, we'll do another demo. We need a POC.
Yes,
okay, we'll do a POC. Right now, I'm talking about like more, in tech, but it's true across industry. And then you get to where it's like, I don't understand why they're saying no, why they're not responding to me, or why it was lost to no decision. And that's that's the next thing I'm going to go to is I want to see lost deals. I want to know why deals were lost. And often what we see is, and this is a fault in the CRM solution, is we're using drop downs and we're forcing information at loss to price, loss to competition, but it's not actually telling us anything.
Yeah.
And that's probably also not why the deal was lost. Was it lost to price, or was it lost because I couldn't accurately or adequately demonstrate value? Did I not understand the financial impact to the business today so that I could represent that the cost of staying the same was far greater than the cost of change? Because that's the evaluation that's being done by the CFO or procurement.
Yep.
So if I'm not doing that, then the deal like moves in all these weird directions, and it's on forecast, and it gets kicked out week after week, month after month, quarter after quarter. And you come in and you see these deals like, how can this deal be 430 days old and still be sitting? And the rep's like, oh, well, no, they're going to buy. The CFO said it's being, it's going to be budgeted for. How about no?
I'll tell you the truth, right? I'm guilty of it myself. So I had been working 2 deals, 2 very exciting deals, very promising deals. I even had an advocate go onto the call with the CEO, and RevIntel, we had a new update, and I ran it. Give me an analysis on the pipeline right now, and it said, Shane, I hate to break it to you, these 2 deals that you are so gung-ho on, they've actually been in the pipeline, been delayed for 11 weeks. Your engagement is showing you this, and you can't see it yourself because you're so excited, you're so happy on the opportunity, you're forgetting to see the nuance in the deal. And I was like, oh my God, I'm the CEO of my own company. I didn't even use my own my own intelligence, right?
And by the way, in some of the AI tools, like, so I have to say I'm an AI enthusiast, strong proponent. I'm going to do it. I have my own podcast on AI, so I'm all in on it. However, what we see all too often in the AI solutions is that it's giving you false signals.
That's true.
Because oh, so oh yeah, I email my champion, and they email me right back. So the system is saying, oh well, there's communication, oh there's meetings, but it's not telling you what's the content and the context of that meeting. Was it just a check-in meeting for 5 minutes, or was it, hey, we've reviewed the red lines and here are our questions? Like, where is the deal itself?
Hmm.
So I do believe what we're going to start seeing are companies pulling back from the AI investment in the sales and marketing stack in particular, because they've made these investments over the last year or so. And to your point, close rates aren't even 25%. Most companies right now would kill to be at 25 to 28%.
Yeah.
So, if my close rates are 17 to 20%, and I implement all these tools that are supposed to make my sales team better, and my close rates are still 17 to 20%, so this isn't a technology problem. This is a training and process problem.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And I think it's come to, I actually looked at it the other day when I was doing a bit of research. I've seen a lot of companies, you've got your big companies, and they're set up by the usual corporate hierarchy. You've got your C suite, your VPs, your middle managers, and then it goes down. And what you've got is a problem at the bottom of the org that, let's just say, a problem needs to be raised, and that problem needs to be solved 5, 6, 7 layers up in the food chain. Somebody's out. Now, those informants, I call them informants, they are passing information through the food chain. It takes 3 weeks to get one job done. And that is adding. And then when you've got simple, you've got Microsoft, I added Copilot. I've added 10,000 licenses of Copilot for $5 a month. Now we're supposed to be getting better, but we've only got 5 to 10% incremental gains. And they wonder why. But we've got all these other tools, and they wonder why. But what they're failing to do is understand that a redesign of your workflow needs to take place. And the redesign of your workflow is where all of this fucking intelligence, all of this data that you've stored for 10, 15, 20 years is valuable information that needs to be stored in one place. One place, and then there's supposed to be, in an AI agentic world, to go from 5% to 49%, sub 49% productivity gains. The redesign of the workflow has to take place. You cut the fucking middle management. AI delivers on the actual scope of work, and humans are manning these processes to the process that works, to the fundamental foundational process that works. And I think that's what's the missing piece right here. People are adding on versus redesigning.
So, I'm obviously I'm an older guy. When I started in sales, and I'm not the old guy.
Yeah.
That's not. There's a point to the story.
Yes.
When I started in sales, there was no internet, there were no cell phones. It was you had a zip code territory, a postal code territory, driving around or walking around if you were in a city. You had manila folders and index cards and a desk phone at your office. You had to go to the office to make calls. And then you had you knew in your territory where the payphones were that were next to the restroom so you could jump out.
Yeah,
You went,
I
you
wasn't
foot,
around for that.
right, yeah, you foot canvassed. You went door to door dropping off business cards. I was selling payroll, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm Mike from ADP, blah, blah, blah. And we were making quota, exceeding quota, right? Making President's Club. And doing it with no technology. But what we knew was what we didn't call it ICP, but we knew who our ICP was. We qualified ruthlessly. We didn't spend time on a deal that wasn't qualified. We would just move on and keep following. We would nurture that sometimes over a period of years before they were like, hey, I really hate my payroll company, or I found out that Betty, the bookkeeper, has been embezzling from me, so I'm not going to do payroll internally anymore. This is real, by the way. But we didn't go do demos for no reason. And along the way, we implemented all this technology, and that supplanted the human to human interaction in the need to actually qualify deals. And it got to people have been very consumed with what I'll call the vanity metrics. How many dials did you make? How many leads do you have? I don't give a shit how many leads you have. I actually don't care. You go to a trade show, oh, scan 5,000 names. Awesome. How many of those 5,000 are going to qualify? 50? Okay. And then how many of the 50 are going to convert to the metrics aren't there because we have been too reliant on the technology instead of the process and putting the logic to it that says who actually needs to buy my product. And then when I've identified who that is, how do I engage them in a way that's meaningful?
The sellers of today don't have that. I don't think they have that.
They don't, because we're not training people to think that way. And I have people come to me all the time like, "Oh, Mike, you don't get it." You're like, I'm going to tell you right now. Back in the day before technology, if you were 70% of quota for one quarter as a sales leader, you were having a conversation with your VP or your SVP of sales. We didn't have CROs back then. If it was 2 quarters in a row, it's 70%. You were in real trouble. And if it was 3 quarters, you were gone. If you were a sales rep closing in most B2B closing at a 20% or 25% clip, you wouldn't last more than 1 or 2 quarters. So I don't know when it became acceptable. And I think that the close rates actually may be even different than that because we put so much into the top of funnel that it's depressing the close rate. Where if we said, okay, let's really focus just on qualified, then maybe we shrink the funnel. And I make a distinction between funnel and pipeline, but we shrink the funnel so that it's more like 1.5x or maybe 2x instead of 3x, 4x, 5x.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
So you talk about reimagining sales as a manufacturing process. So the lead is raw material and a closed deal is the finished good. Walk us through that. How does thinking like a factory floor operator change the way a sales leader runs their team?
It goes back to a book that I read years ago, and I can't believe I just forgot the name of it.
Is it called The Goal by Eli Goldratt?
The Goal. Thank you. Ooh. Yes. One of the greatest business books I've ever read. And
I love it.
And it's not about sales, but it's about the process and finding the bottleneck in the process.
The fat kid, right?
The fat kid. And moving them up and down, back and forth in the line of kids on the hike to make them go fat
on the hill, right?
And I was like, oh my God. So and by the way, this also goes back to the earlier question about things being linear. Different solutions in your organization, unless you're a single solution sale, are going to have different processes and different times.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottleneck in the process will be different depending upon how expensive the product is. How many people are in the buying audience? Is it a global sale or is it a regional sale? All of these things affect your sales cycle length, and your bottleneck is going to be in a different place. Mm-hmm. But that book informed me and got me thinking about sales as a process. So what else is a process? Well, manufacturing. In a manufacturing process, you start with raw material. In our case, that's the lead.
Yeah. And
the source of our raw material are things like outbounding, trade shows, website, all that. That's the source. Mm-hmm. So I have my raw material, and I'm going to process that to get to a final result, closed won, or my finished product. In a manufacturing process, the goal is always to reduce, remove, eliminate waste at every single step and stage of the process, because in doing that, I increased my yield and I've reduced my cost, so my margin is better.
And you achieve throughput, the best word in the book.
Throughput, right. So if I do that in the sales process and I start to think about, well, what's the best source for raw material? Mm-hmm. What is then the best raw material? So, my best raw material is inbound from the website. So I want to pour as much into SEO, into AI search,
Mm-hmm.
all of that, so that I'm bringing people to the website.
Mm-hmm.
Then I want to have a process that's pristine for qualifying that lead for somebody who comes to the website. So I'm making it, I can make a determination who's going to go through the process or who's going to wait and nurture
Mm-hmm.
as raw material until I'm ready to manufacture. It's a very different way of thinking about it. But no matter how good you get at this, by the way, and I'm not claiming like, oh, I'm the best sales guy in the world. That is far from it. But at every step, you're in stage, you're going to have you're going to have material that's just going to fall away. You're going to have loss.
Yeah.
But you want to minimize it, and you want to also take as much loss early in the process as you can, because that's the cheapest time
Mm-hmm.
to utilize your raw material. If you're going through an entire process and you're losing deals at proposal, the cost of that is tremendous. We're talking about hours of sales time, demos, multiple people from your organization being involved, maybe people getting on airplanes, T&E, all that for a deal that you probably lost at qualification or discovery, or maybe it was never even qualified at all.
Save yourself a bunch of time with that. Absolute bunch of time. And I think time saving is where the VP SaaS model makes a lot of sense. So a lot of
Yes.
founders I know, they're very skeptical about the fractional leader. They're very skeptical that a fractional leader can actually drive the same results as a full-time hire. I will tell you, I tried to run a fractional CRO role myself and build my company, and I failed. It was pissing me off. It was 90 minutes a day, but speaking to that client and the needs and requests of that client were too much for me in terms of I don't want. I know I don't want to do this. So you've built your entire business though around proving them wrong, which is very, 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 very eye opening. Where does fractional actually outperform full time, and why?
Well, the answer, as with many things, is it depends. So it's generally a scale question. So it depends upon where the company is in their process. And most of the folks that I talk to and have worked with are still at a stage where they don't need a CRO, or they maybe need a CRO, but they can't or shouldn't spend the money on one.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I'm spending more time talking to folks in private equity.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that resonates with them is if you hire a CRO right now, head of sales, average tenure is 18, 19 months. So the likelihood of is that you're hiring an executive that is either going to leave or you're going to turn over in 6 quarters. You're going to pay, depending upon where it is, where that person is, anywhere from $275,000 to $350,000 base, plus their variable and equity. And even if they only stay for a year and a half, they're going to take some equity from you when they leave, because it's going to vest after a year. So there's real cost to the business for that. Instead of saying, all right, well, why don't we hire a VP of sales as a service or fractional CRO, whichever term you prefer in this case, who has, 20, 30, 40 years of experience for 6 months, 12 months to get us through where we are right now, scale, and then use that person also to help us find a full-time CRO that fits where we are and where we're headed. Or maybe it's like, hey, we fall in love with Mike and we want you to stay as our CRO. And then it's up to that person to decide, is that what they want?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a very different mindset. And we're in this place now in the world where people are, I mean, we want some certainty from employment, but that's becoming less and less of a thing because companies are laying off, right? Yeah. So
It's a big headache.
and because I'm not certain even as a business, right? Things can change in a moment. Do I want to have to worry about paying severance to somebody? right? All these things have cost, but in time, right? So my contracts, it's either a 15 or 30 day mutual termination. So I can leave, or they can ask me to leave. 15 or
Yep.
30 days, and that's it. We turn it off. There's no other billing. There's no severance. There's no benefits to carry over. None of that. So so I've gotten somebody who I may not have been able to attract to my business. Um, I've saved a bunch of money in doing it, and the business theoretically improves for having made that decision. Um, you may have a few fractional leaders before you settle in on the one that works for you, or you may interview a bunch and say, okay, well, this is Mike or Shane has the qualifications, has been in the industry, or has scaled companies like mine. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an exact industry, but has solved for the business problem, which is I'm always focused on this problem, and that helps the business as well. So one of the things that we see, just like brutal honesty, and I'm not casting aspersions, by the way, is we hire somebody who from name brand pedigree company, IBM, Oracle, Salesforce, Workday, what have you, and they've worked for all these amazing companies, and I make them my CRO or my CMO or my SVP of sales, whatever. And it turns out that person isn't. They're good at their job, but they're not good at that job because they've not actually built anything. They've not activated anything. They've been given plans, and then they've
Yep.
operationalized those plans, which has a place in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But for the businesses that are generally attracted to the work that I do, which is, I'll say, sub 20 million revenue companies, I need somebody who gets shit done, who looks at a process and says, this process is insane. Why are you doing this? Who looks at a comp plan and says, this comp plan is not designed to get people to maximize revenue. Who can sit in a demo and say, why are you demoing features? Nobody cares about features, right? But if that's the world that you come from, and then it's really hard to move into that small world and be able to assess lots and lots of different things that are happening all at the same time.
So how do you mitigate that? If I'm a business owner and I've got all these guys, and sellers can sell, they can do it all. So I'm on the phone with this guy who's a VP of sales, and he's feeding me the best story. He's got the credentials, he's got the experience. The team loves him. We hire him, and he's a fucking mess. So how do you mitigate the wrong decision? Obviously, the due diligence. You can go through referrals, but again, it only does. What if he tells him, "Please give me a good word. I need this job."
Case
You
studies, case studies, have them do case studies.
okay?
Um, it, it's so important. Listen, I mean, I think I'm a reasonably good sales guy. I interview from time to time. Sometimes it's for practice. Sometimes there's
Mm-hmm.
genuine interest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, doesn't mean I'm going to get a job. In fact, I can tell you emphatically, right? I do these interviews and I don't get jobs. I don't even get to a second round in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying I'm the guy.
Yep.
And in some cases, I will tell you that the people that I'm talking to are asking the wrong questions of a leader. So the questions that you want to be asking are very specific to, again, your business and your business problem. I don't actually care that much what you did other than just to make sure that there's some relevance. But if I'm hiring a head of sales or a CMO or a CFO, I'm hiring that person to solve a problem for where I am right now and where I'm going. So that should be the only thing you should be talking about with that person. How are you going to help me with this problem today and for the next 2 or 3 years? And where have you done it before? And then just to make sure that you're not full of shit, I'm going to put you through, I'm going to have you do a case study. and
Okay.
see what I get for the case study, what I get for a result. One of the things that we started doing with my clients, this is going back, actually, even back when I was full-time operational, as the last stage in the process is we would have people present to us the solution that they were currently selling in a
Okay.
discovery. So if you're selling RevIntel, I don't want you to come and sell me call motion sales. Do a discovery call for RevIntel as if I were a prospect. If I was the buying persona, you're selling to a
Yeah.
CRO, selling
Yeah.
to a CMO. So I'm going to role play that with you.
Yeah.
The failure rate of reps is like 70%. It's
Wow.
because they don't know how to do this. They don't know how to qualify and they don't know how to do discovery. And the other thing, so I had a client, we were doing this we had a candidate come through who was coming from one of those marquee name brand companies, um, absolutely failed miserably at doing the case study. And at the end of it, I said, well, let me give you some feedback here. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't, the cat's out of there. And she got
Yeah.
really upset, myself and the founder on the call.
Yeah.
Like wildly upset, accused us of trying to trick her, not explaining what the expectations were going to be. By the way, it's
Yeah.
all written out, set in
Yeah.
advance.
Mm-hmm.
And the call ended, and I said to the co-founder, I said, "This is why we're doing the case studies, because on paper and through the first part of the interview, it's hard not to fall in love. But can she actually do the job?" And the answer was no. And then that gets you into the, okay, well, why has this person had 4 jobs in 5 years? Right? Because you have
Makes a lot of
listen,
sense.
there are economic factors, right, that lead people to
Mm-hmm.
have to change jobs a lot. But there's a difference between that and a pattern. And it's not just for salespeople, whatever the job is. And so you need to look at the pattern of the person. Is it every 12 to 14 months, every 16 to 18 months? Because what you want to understand is, does this person make chronically bad decisions, or do they get into a job, they don't really learn how to do it, or they're not particularly good at it, and when the company figures it out, puts them on plan, or they realize, I think I might get fired, and they start looking for another job. And for sales, onboarding to full productivity can be 4 months, 6 months. So if the person's going to leave after a year, it's going to be a year before I realize, right person, wrong person. I'm losing the metric that I learned is every time you turn over a rep, it's the annual quota for that person that you lose. So if they're carrying $1 million quota, every time I turn them over, I'm losing $1 million of revenue. So
Wow, that's painful.
yeah, so that's all has to go into your process.
Yep.
And when you're bringing on a head of sales, fractional, what have you, you have to be taking that into account. So if I take on a CRO and I hire that person and I get 90 days in, first board meeting, and it's like, oh my God, Mike doesn't know what he's talking about. I heard that. I never even had did a sample board meeting or asked Mike about how he manages, how does he talk to investors in a board meeting?
Yeah.
So now I have to fire Mike, go find another CRO. That's going to set the business back a year easily. So that's how I'm encouraging investors, CEOs, CFOs to think about these decisions. It's not Mike's done Mike's worked everything from pre-seed to IBM. He's done all of it. Like, that's great for some businesses,
Yeah.
not great for other businesses. So being the word is intentional. Very intentional about the people that you hire. Be very intentional about your process, and don't fall in love with either. Meaning, if you have somebody that you have that's on your team that isn't a whoa,
Well.
you okay?
Yeah. It's the camera. I'm trying to I'm trying to plug the camera in so I don't die.
Like, I've not lost anybody in a podcast before. So yeah, if I have the wrong person, I have to make a decision. I have to make a decision quickly.
Yeah.
So don't fall. You can't fall in love with the person. And then second is you can't fall in love with your process because things are going to change, especially now, very, very quickly.
Yeah.
So, today we do demos. 6 months from now, we may not do demos at all. I'm making this up. We may not do demos at all. It may all be via Loom and AI. I don't need I don't need an SE anymore. Awesome. That just saved me, $150,000 base pay for each one. So you have to be open to a constant input and constant change.
So let's jump into the science of execution then, because if we fast forward from the hiring process, we've evaluated a good fit. Now let's get into this part I love, okay? It's called kill BANT and the 4 W's, right? So you've said if you're still qualifying with BANT, you're part of the problem. I remember working with a firm, a no-code automation company that wanted to deliver construction software for construction companies, and they were gung-ho on BANT.
Yep.
Absolutely gung-ho on BANT, and they said every one of them should have a tactical need and a strategic need on a call. On the first call, I said, are you serious? You really think somebody's thinking about your no-code automation tool on the first call to have a week plan and a 12-year plan for you? Are you fucking serious? They were like, yes, I've done it all the time. I said, when did you pick up the phone? So they did it. They were a freaking marketeer. So that's going to accept some people listening right now. Walk us through your 4 W's framework. What happened? Why now? Who owns it? And when do they need to be live? How does that actually separate real deals from ghosts in the pipeline?
So let's just put a pin in this. BANT is 70. BANT was invented by IBM in the 1950s. Budget authority, need timing. Great.
Yeah.
Back then, and for many years, it worked fine.
Yeah.
Except for one thing, which is the budget question, right? Because when you ask somebody budget, they either lie because they don't want to say, "Oh, my budget's 100,000, so now he's going to come in at 99,999," or they say, "I'm not allowed to tell you that." And by the way, budget, when there's an actual problem that has to be solved, budget materializes.
You make it.
Every company has some money set aside in their slush fund because shit happens. It's unexpected all year. So let me set that aside. And I'm not going to get into the whole, how did we end up with the 4 W's? That's a whole nother story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in a B2B sale, there's a catalyst or a trigger. One of the mistakes that we made is we taught people to sell to pain, or we tell people to sell to pain. Pain is a signal. That's all it is. We can be in pain for weeks, months, years before we go to a doctor to do anything about it.
Correct.
I got to lose 50 pounds. I've had to lose 50 pounds for 3 years. I haven't lost 50 pounds yet. And there's all kinds of downstream effects until the doctor says you are, borderline diabetic, and if you don't lose 30 pounds in 6 months, you'll probably be dead in 2 years. Oh, now it's.
Yep.
I've now moved from pain to an untenable situation. That's how businesses operate too. They can be in pain for a long time, but until it's an untenable situation, they're unlikely to take any real action to change.
Yeah.
So what happened is the first question that we ask in qualification. And by the way, qualification is its own conversation. This is before discovery, for pricing, features, anything. It's a 20-minute call with somebody to qualify them. Can you actually buy something? Are you going to buy something? What happened? And then what happened that you reached out to Calm Ocean Sales? What happened that, when Shane called you, what happened that you cleared time on your busy calendar to meet with me? And then shut up.
I love it. I love it. Shut up.
Because what you want to hear is, something broke, or oh well, Mike was in a meeting, and you're generally going to be talking to somebody a few levels down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mike was in a meeting, and the CFO said, "Hey, this is a huge problem. I didn't realize how big this problem is, and it needs to be solved. And by the way, if you don't solve it, I'm going to put somebody else in the chair who can. Or if this doesn't get solved, we're going to lose 30% of our business to competition. Like we've moved from pain and awareness to an untenable situation, the trigger event.
Yeah.
I give you kind of a weird example. I had a
I'm
truck
with
a
it.
couple of years ago. Like, I loved my truck. I had no intention
Mm-hmm.
of getting rid of my truck. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a bike that I love too. I'm a cyclist. I
Yeah.
was sitting in traffic north of Boston, and a guy plowed right into the back of the truck with the bike on the rack. Destroyed my bike, destroyed my truck.
Oh.
So I went from being like, yeah, maybe at some point my truck's got 140,000 miles on, I'll get another truck, to I
Mm-hmm.
have to buy a new truck right now. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. The next question is, well, why do you have to do something now? This is the business problem. Well, Mike said we have to fix it, and we have to fix it now because here's the thing that we can't do. Here's the thing that's costing us money. I can't close my books. I can't get marketing information out of my CRM system, and I have this $1 million event that whatever it is. So now I can begin to determine, is the financial impact great enough to continue to drive this conversation? Because if I'm selling a $50,000 solution and you just described a $20,000 problem, I'm done. I'm out. And I can just say to them, like, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to well, maybe if I just try to bring it along and I can sell more value, and then I'll just discount it 50%. But you're gonna lose the deal at the end. I
Yeah,
already
waste of
know
time.
that, and you may not
Yeah.
want the deal. Your CFO might say, "You're not giving a 50% discount. You already want." So you want to know that. The third the third question is, who owns this project? Not who's the decision maker, who signed the deal. Who owns the project? Meaning, who said, go get on a phone with 7 different vendors and find a solution to this problem? And if the answer to that question is not a senior executive in the business, you don't have a deal. And this is why this is so important. And Medic says, who's your economic buyer? The economic buyer may not be the person who owns the project.
Mm-hmm.
And in today's world, where everybody is so busy and dollars are compressed, nobody has extra time. So no CFO, as an example, is going to say, I want you to go and talk to 7 companies, sit through demos, get proposals, bring me the top 3. I'm then going to spend 4 or 5 hours of my time evaluating those proposals and then bring in legal and procurement. But that's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So if I don't have a senior executive and a trigger event, those are the 2 biggest things that tell you if it's qualified.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a qualified opportunity. I have somebody who's interested. That's all they are. Maybe a good champion, but it's not qualified.
Yeah.
And then the 4th question is, when do you need to be in production? Or when do you need it delivered? That is different from when are you buying? Because the problem that we have been taught is to ask the when are you buying question.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also false in most cases. And it's why we see close dates move in CRM constantly, from May 31 to, now it's June 15th, and then it's July 18th, it's October 31st, because there was no go live date. So if I have a strong trigger, if I have financial impact, if I have a senior executive saying you have to get this fixed and it has to be fixed by this date, it's qualified.
I like that a lot. I like that, and this is Mike. I'm gonna tell you the truth. That's even new to me. I've ran my discovery calls. What's your priority now? What are you trying to achieve this quarter? What needs to happen by next quarter? What none of that. None of the stuff that I've actually These are 4 very very simple questions, and actually does qualify the deal. It's a really
Sorry to interrupt. It's a conversation,
yeah.
right? So if you do it as a script, it won't work. But if you do it as a conversation, it's a human to human interaction.
Yep. And that's the skill.
It is. Yeah. But if you can't, I'm sorry, but if you can't talk to another person, human to human, you should not be in sales, not as a BDR or as an AE.
Correct.
Full stop. I mean, there has to be a certain amount of empathy from us in order for this to work. And no technology is going to change that unless it's again, if it's transactional, different story. But the people that generally are going to listen to this podcast or talk to me or talk to you are not selling transactional stuff.
Yeah, they're selling big ticket sales. Big ticket sales.
And by the way, I wrote about this at the end of 2025. It applies across industry. I applied this same philosophy and mentality to buying a truck. And I went out and thought, I think I'll buy a new truck, replace my truck.
Yeah.
I had pain. I didn't have, but there was no catalyst. There was no trigger event. My truck was fine. There were just things about it I didn't like. Not one. So there was one salesperson kind of qualified me. I went to like 11. I talked to like 11 different salespeople. I drove a bunch of different trucks because I had to know like which truck that I want, what was going to fit in the garage, all this stuff. And it ended in no decision. It ended in no decision. By the way, I took part of the money that I was going to put towards the new truck and bought a car. So I have a truck and a car. And spent less money.
Okay. Yeah.
So I solved my problem in a different way. This is no different than what happens in a B2B sale. I didn't have pain. I had no requirements. I had weak requirements. Nobody even asked me though what they were. Maybe one salesperson. There was no impetus to buy before January or December. It didn't matter. I keep driving my truck. The truck I'm driving right now, I could drive for another 5 years. But nobody qualified me. Nobody asked me questions. They were like, can I have your license? Picture your license. Your phone number so that I can call you 3 times. And then go on a test drive. I had one guy, I was like ready to go. Like, that's the truck that I want. And he undid the deal. Him and his sales manager. And I drove home with my truck. I was like, that was the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
It happened to me yesterday. I was trying to buy a service yesterday, and I got onto the call, and the first 6 minutes of the call before I told the guy, I'm not the guy to ever speak to you again or work with you ever. And it was because the guy joined the call and started to tell me, oh, from my experience, this almost never works. This is the reason why it's not, all reasons why this was not going to work. And I was just like, you know what? Thank you. So tell me, how much does it work? Do you have expats that you work with this? Yeah, but it's only a few. Basically, he was telling me all expats are stupid. So I said, okay, cool. No, you just lost a bunch of money right now. So I really think people, they don't know how to sell. They think just because they have a business, just because they have a bit of a title on them or a bit of experience, they have a fucking license to just come up with, really ruin the profession, right? It ruins the profession.
The thing that we have to focus, right? So there are certain things that I do get very fanatical about. One is this idea, the qualification discovery. The other thing is being hyper-focused on the business problem that you solve. And focus is one of my favorite words of the last 5 years. A PE company came in, bought our company, and they were like, focus, focus, focus. When you try to do too many things, you do none of them well.
Correct.
And if you don't understand the reason why people will buy whatever you're selling, a car, payroll software, sales AI software, whatever it is, you are going to struggle and probably fail. Because it's, again, we're not talking about like, oh, I think I'll buy a new pair of jeans today. We're talking about people spending tens of thousands to millions of dollars.
Yep.
They're doing that because they have a problem that they must solve. Either you solve that problem or you do not. And when you define your ICP, you need to define your ICP against the problem that you solve, not the market that you want to sell into. And then there's a whole other thing called IOP, ideal opportunity profile, that falls out of ICP, another conversation. But like as an example, one of my clients was a quantum computing company. We sold a controller, quantum controller that manages the quantum tech stack. The ICP was almost perfectly defined, right? Because basically some universities, not all, have quantum labs. Some government has quantum labs, quantum initiatives. Some large commercial entities are now starting to do quantum computing, use quantum computing. We knew who the buying personas were. We knew the colleges. We knew we knew that small number, if you will, relatively speaking. So we could laser in on our target audience.
Yeah.
With a message around the problem we knew that they were going to encounter, and they could only solve by building their own controller or through one of 4 companies in the world that made a controller. That was it. There was no need for me to go talk to Marriott hotels. There's no need for me to go talk to the pizza shop or a $10 million software company. No need. There's no buyer there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what we see companies doing. And then what happens is we're not making our number, and the pressure comes from the investors. So what do? We say, oh, we got to broaden the ICP. We got to talk to no, don't talk to fewer people. Narrow the focus even more. Like really get into what's the fundamental business problem that you solve? What is your moat? What is the thing that nobody else or almost nobody else can come in and say, I do that as well as comm sales. And then
Correct.
focus on that until you have your process figured out, until you now say, okay, I can now layer on other things, other products, other solutions. And by the way, you can go back and some of this is like immutable laws of business. You can go back in time as far as you want. Henry Ford, the Model A, you could have any color you want as long as it's black. 2-door, $500. That was it. Till he perfected the assembly line and in supply chain distribution, he didn't make another car. Yeah. You couldn't get a 4-door. Oracle sold only database until they had it figured out. Nike, I wrote about this recently. Nike with the Nike Cortez. Nike sold the Cortez sneaker. They didn't sell multiple sneakers. They didn't sell clothing. There was none of that happened until they had it figured out. Amazon started selling books. People don't realize that. Yeah. Because they only know Amazon is this massive thing. Amazon started by selling books because books don't spoil. They don't get damaged. Easy to transport back and forth. So once Amazon figured out supply chain, search, delivery, and return, only then did they expand into CDs and DVDs, and then eventually into other hard goods like clothing. It was a slow expansion. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't change whatever your business is. So you have to get really, really focused on what's the business problem that I solve? Who do I solve it for? Mm-hmm. And keep going at that until either you nail it or until the data says to you, this is the wrong audience, or you're not solving that problem. And you need to now try something different.
I think that leads us very well into the next piece, which is pipeline quality versus quantity. So you call BS on the 4x pipeline coverage mantra. At Jitterbit, your team never had 3x coverage, and you still hit 75 to 95% of quota every quarter. How and what did you do differently that most sales orgs refuse to do? Unless you've already said it.
Exactly. So what we did was we got ruthless about qualifying. And when someone said, "Well, how much is this going to cost?" The answer was, "Well, I don't know." Like in the early calls, I don't know. And even if we did know, I had sellers who have been doing it for 5, 6, 10 years at Jitterbit. They knew from the first conversation pretty much what it was going to cost. But the answer was, I don't know. It's going to be somewhere between $10,000 a year and $150,000 a year, but I don't know yet. And if I give you an answer now, it's going to be wrong, one way or the other, and then you're going to be mad at me.
I like that. I think
And
that's
that's
really
it.
good.
End of story. And if somebody said, "Well, I have to have the number right now," well, why do you have to have the number right now? Because generally, what we would find is they needed the number right now because they were already talking to a competitor,
Yep.
and the CFO said, "Well, did you get another bid?"
So,
Yeah. So that was one. The other is we didn't do competitive replacements.
okay, that's really interesting. So let's go into the reality.
Not not as a
Go on.
not as a I would say it wasn't a general rule, but it was a solid guideline. Competitive replacement comes at a cost. There has to be a really, really good reason for somebody, especially in that world, which is integration, it's infrastructure. There has to be a really good reason to rip out infrastructure because it's expensive. It's like ripping the plumbing out of your house.
Oof.
So, we usually would be stuff like, oh, well, their support sucks. I can't get a call back. Um, and then eventually would work its way to price, and so the question then would become, and this was either in the qualification or discovery call we would learn this. So then the question would become, well, what's going to happen when your CFO calls your vendor, your existing vendor, and says, we're canceling our contract because your support sucks, or you're charging me too much money? Is the vendor going to say, whoa, 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 don't go? We'll give you tier 1 support for free, or we'll cut your price by 20%. The CFO said, awesome, everybody go back to work. I solved the problem. That's what's going to happen in a competitive replacement. Now, every now and then we would have somebody who would say, oh, I'm going to tell you right now, if vendor A says to the CFO, we'll cut the price 20%, our CFO is going to destroy them for not having done it sooner. And that will be the end of that.
Yep. Okay. I'm on the call.
So what you want to know in a competitive replacement is, again, we're back to is this a problem? The vendor can't do something that you need done versus I'm just mad at them.
Yeah.
Or I need to get another quote so that when I do my renewal, I can pull their price down. And we would say to people, if that's all you need, I'll give you a quote. I'll send you a quote for $15,000 a year, and you can use that as your competitive leverage. And by the way, I'm not going to sell you my software for $15,000, but if it puts a hurt on my competitor, fine. What do I care? And
Yeah.
people are going to say, "Well, look, ethical, fine, whatever." But that's I'm cutting through the waste in the process.
Correct.
I'm talking to somebody who is not going to buy what I'm selling. I want to stop talking to them. And what we would often see, by the way, is those people coming back to us either when the competitor finally did really stumble or when they changed jobs. And they would come to us and say, I talked to you a year ago when I was at XYZ company, and you were the only vendor who was honest with me. And those
Deal closed.
bingo, fast sales cycles.
Okay.
So
all right, that makes sense. Then let's go.
So that's how it started. So that's how we did it. We were like maniacal about our sales process. Everything was in Salesforce. If it wasn't in Salesforce, it didn't happen. It didn't exist. If two sales reps were fighting over a deal, I would go to Salesforce. I would say, whose notes are in Salesforce? Shane, you have nothing in Salesforce. Mike's got all kinds of emails and stuff chronicled in the system. Shane, shut up, go back to work. The deal is not yours. Forecast calls were run out of Salesforce. I put my notes in every single week on the forecast calls. Yeah. So you could see the chronology of the deal, top to bottom, end to end. Yeah. And so could everybody else in the company.
And you should. I think that's right. The CRM and one thing right now that reps may not pay attention to or know is that the hygiene you have in your CRM system as of today will enable you to perform 10 to 100 times better, because if your team decides to give AI agents to your reps or your front-facing members of the business, the only way that those reps are going to be able to leverage AI to the best of their ability is if their notes and their CRM is actually good. So you've said you can't scale what you haven't fixed, and that most teams are just putting lipstick on a pig with their tech stack. You got Salesforce, Outreach, Gong, Clary, and the number still hasn't moved. What needs to happen before the tools actually work? Process?
Process first.
Process, yep.
Before you implement a single tool, look at the process that you're putting in the tool for. Does the process make sense? Will the tool enhance it? And if so, how will it enhance it? And then train everybody who's going to use it on how to use it and also what they cannot do with it. Like, oh, you can't just download your customer data into ChatGPT and create your own marketing campaign. Well, why? Well, because it's our that's unless it's you have secure LLM. I don't know. You don't know where that data is going.
You do not,
Like,
and it's very risky.
right. So those are the things you have to train on. Yeah. So otherwise, like, I mean, I have some AI that I'm using, but my tech stack is very, very narrow. Just
Lean.
can be. I don't need all the other stuff for my business. I don't.
All right. So top of the hour, burnout and
Yep.
balance, and then the one thing for founders, you've been very open about the emotional toll of this job. I'll tell you the truth. Today, I felt like I had felt the first instances of a burnout, cash problems, business, things not moving fast enough, wife, home problems, rent problems, bills, everything just like coming out all directions. You've missed dinners. You got board pressure. There's forecast anxiety. You've said no job is worth your health or your family. For the CROs, the VPs listening right now, even for me, who are feeling that pressure, what's your advice? How do you protect yourself without stepping away from the game?
Listen, this is like really hard. Yeah, I think we're at a crisis level from a mental health standpoint in business and sales. I think feels it maybe more than other functions.
Much more.
Um, and I wish I had the answer. Um, there's a few things that I'm a study of Stoic philosophy. So there's a few things that I firmly believe. One is the basic theory of memento mori, which is remember you will die. So all the stuff that we get caught up in is probably not that important. And it may not be that important in a week, a month, or a year. So try to do your best to try to figure out like how important is this right now. The second is like if you have a family, your family has to be your priority. And I'm in a weird place because my whole family structure is a mess, admittedly. But it's not because of my job. It's other factors. But your that's the thing that matters. Who's going to be in your corner, and pay attention to them because the job is the job, right? The thing that's changed, or a big thing that's changed, is we can do a great job. We can be over plan. I've been there 130% of plan. Walked into a one-on-one and was in my truck driving home 20 minutes later. Oh, no notice, no warning. So we can it can happen to any of us. So like again, I'll use the word intentional. Be very intentional about your time and what you do with it. And when shit gets really heavy and really hard, step away. The most valuable thing that you can do for yourself is to step away for an hour. If you can't step away for an hour, you and your business have much bigger problems. Step away for a week. I'm going on vacation next week. I'm going away, gone. You have to do that, even as a founder, because your brain requires it. And then the last is, just in terms of interacting with other people, everybody's going through something. Everybody.
Very true.
Everybody on your team, your CEO, your investors, everybody has stuff going on in their personal life. So give everybody grace, no matter how hard it is. You don't have to agree politically. You don't have to agree religiously. You don't have to agree gender preference. None of that shit matters. Everybody's going through something. So just try to give people a little bit of grace. It will help you because all of the stuff that we're dealing with is all happened before. This is part of the Stoic philosophy. It's all happened before. It will all happen again. So
Agreed.
focus on this. Focus on the stuff that's actually really important in your life, your health, your family, all the money. Yeah, it's important. Obviously, we have to pay our bills, have a roof over our head. But if you take care of the other stuff and you have peace, the money will come.
I agree. Last question. Last question. If a founder or CEO listening right now has a pipeline they don't trust and a sales leader they're not sure about, what is the one thing they should do this week to get clarity on whether their revenue engine is real or a house of cards?
They should contact me on, on LinkedIn or my website for a no cost, no obligation, confidential conversation. I'm not going to sell you anything, but what we need is somebody to say, am I insane? Am I looking at this right? And I'm really good at saying to somebody, whoa, like you got a real problem where no, the problem is you. And that's one of the it's like this is on I'll close on this. The brand for me is if you talk to me, I'm a Boston guy. I swear, I tell you like it is, but I'm never unkind. I'm never mean. You will
Yeah.
never, and I mean never, walk away from a conversation and say, I don't think Muhlfelder was being straight with me. So if you have a problem or think you have a problem, come to me. I'll tell you from my 40 years of sales experience if you have a problem or not, and if the problem is you.
I think that's a great way to wrap it up. Any last words?
Peace. Well, take care of yourselves.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
That's the pod,
Thanks for
guys.
listening to me. Yeah.
No worries. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this episode and staying here the whole way through. If you like what you saw, click subscribe. It'll take you 2 seconds. It helps me reach amazing guests and deliver valuable content for you. And if you ever want to find out what we do as a business, go to www.gorevintel.com, and that is the place where we help you make decisions that are backed by intelligence, and it's for founder CEOs. That's it for me for now. I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.